Jim, what role do you think the Fed has played in the huge swoons we've seen in the markets? We typically think of the Fed as a source of market calm.
Yes, that is what they would like us to think. The Fed has the so-called dual mandate, price stability and full employment. Yeah. In fact, Olivia, the Fed's functional mandate is that of arsonist and fireman.
Okay.
Through its well-intended but somewhat maladroit actions to manage and manipulate, the Fed creates those conditions that lead to financial turmoil. And as soon as the smoke begins rising from the marketplace, then you hear the clanging of fire trucks, and Bill Dudley perhaps is driving one of them, and they wheel up, breathless, and say, "We're here. We're going to fix the fire that we started." So the Fed, one shouldn't dogmatize, as I have just done.
Yes.
The Fed is not 100% responsible for every action under the sun. But the Fed, as constituted, is a new institution in our financial lives. It is omnipresent, if not omniscient.
All right, well, I'm glad you mentioned Bill Dudley. We actually had a press conference from the New York Fed president yesterday, and he was pretty adamant that all the instability we've seen this past week, that the U.S. isn't actually to blame. Have a listen.
This is very different than the financial crisis. The financial crisis was very much about us. Subprime mortgage lending, securities, collateral, securitization of securities that turned out to be highly toxic. That was about us. This isn't about us. This is about developments abroad, and I think what we have to assess is how those development abroad potentially could impinge on us.
So, Jim, Bill says the sell-off clearly isn't made in America.
Well, first of all, I think one ought to tread more humbly with respect to comparisons of historical events. The Fed was not exactly the last set of people to understand what 2008 was all about, but they were near the last in line to get it. Certainly they had no conception of what was happening before or during the events. So I'd be a little less quick to draw that analogy. But, this is meant to be a globally interconnected world. That is the permanently echoing cliche, and there is an element of truth in it. We are kind of one interconnected capital market. We are one global idea on central banking. In my opinion, the wrong idea, and that idea is that we must have 2% measured inflation. We must manipulate interest rates rather than allow them to be set through price discovery. We must manage markets upward to create asset values that will stimulate spending. That is the mantra from the central bankers, and that is a worldwide idea, the wrong idea. But I think that some of these ideas were, in fact, ideas are ever so important in finance, and the ideas, contrary to what Mr. Dudley suggests, these ideas are made in America.